Alrighty, let's give this a go. What I wanted to do was to show my flow to record a whole video. So I would start in recording. I'll just get that underway and talk it through because it'll take about 50 seconds. I have my input lag testing device hooked up. I can change as many settings as I like, but essentially for Street Fighter 6, this is the PS5 version. To note, I've got input delay reduction off because I don't want any tearing, so I'm sure the results are going to be a bit slow. Anyway, I've got it set so that it puts out a light punch for 2 frames, and then we kind of record that. It's video interrupt, so you can see the lines going through the screen there that we'll be able to see more clearly in a second. So just about to finish recording here. I'll try to get that fairly snappy. Now we can pull that to the side. There's our video file there. Can paste that, and we'll just rename it something useful. Pop it in its own directory. And then drag our directory onto our program. For now it's called Raiden, purely because I was testing Raiden fighters. Now, this is what it looks like. Scroll with the mouse wheel and we wait until we get our first video interrupt signal. Now I've already got it set up so that it will basically the way it works is that when there's no color, it's very low saturation, and when that strip of color comes through, there's a heap of color on the screen. Sometimes it's not quite right, and so then for whatever reason, so I've got it set at 60% saturation. For some games that's not quite what you want, so we could rerun it with probably 40% would get it done, or you can just manually adjust. Often the life bars will mess it up because they are pretty low saturation, I think, something like that. It's not inevitable that different games will have different spots on the screen that they run into trouble. Anyway, I would suggest this will make less than a millisecond of difference, but it makes me feel happy. Okay. And then the other thing, not infrequently at the end, we just get a few extra ones that don't seem to be doing much. So what we'll do is limit it. So at the moment there's 102 trials. We'll just limit to 100, probably even 99, and that should look a bit better. Now one other thing I do, oops, 2y. That's at 1.68 frames, and so I'd just like to have a nice clean group so we can remove some of these ones where there'd be a touch of overlap. And so now it kind of starts at 1.68 frames and finishes at 1.59 frames. Now, so that's our video interrupt is captured. We don't actually know where the command history is going to turn up, so let's find that next. Slow. So this spot, if I click here, so you can look up at this is what is within the circle, the color values, and this is whatever is under my cursor. So 128, 128, 128, 215. So when that blue command icon appears, then we know that the blue value goes up to over 200, and so we can just set that we want it to look for blue values that are more than 200. It will, having found where the video interrupt happens, run through and find all of the times where the command icon appears, because it's looking in that spot and it's looking for blue values that we set. So you can do blue, red, green. You can't do overall, but you just pick one, and you can do greater than or less than. You can make this a bit snappier, but I've just kind of chosen a generic value. And then it tells us we're halfway through. So I choose 100 trials because it normally wraps around fairly nicely. It also, what I'm always thinking about is for my X post, the video has to be under 512 megs, which it normally is. The images that this generates needs to be under a certain size as well. So I'm just trying to meet that. And 100's a fairly convenient figure. So now we've got our results. The only thing to note, so you can play through, and if you look up here, you'll see that it kind of shows what's going on. The only thing now, clearly there it didn't quite work, so we can, I definitely know why, we can manually go to one and just adjust the ones that were off. The reason for that, when it's looking for a value, it will check like 5 frames or something. I think it's 5, maybe 4. And if this happened on the frame after that, then it's just going to stop looking. And so it's gone back to its default value. So that's understandably the reason why. All right. So we have an average of 90 milliseconds across our 95 trials. We are looking at our command history top, and we're using our Brook UFB Fusion. Now all I do is press enter. It'll give me a reminder down the bottom to make sure I've added my titles, because that's the thing I forget the most often. Enter again. So the screen will appear to freeze. It's not responding anymore. What it's doing is creating the summary images in the background. Okay. It saves a just a picture of the screen that we were looking at. Specifically, 5.53, 5.53, it'll try to find the result amongst all of these that most closely resembles the average, and it'll use that as its exemplar. And then, this is the big picture. Sorry if you get a bit seasick. This is the summary of all of the results. So it'll show 10 images across the top, and you can see these are sequential. 1, 2. Yeah. Yes, sorry, these are sequential. So those are already capped out. And then neutral, 1, 2, and then we let go 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. It'll go down here, and so you can see that was one of the ones that was a bit later. That was one of the ones that was a bit later. It'll have these in bold. It's going to run over 10 minutes because I'm talking a lot. And then for the ones that aren't used, it's just a bit less bold. Okay, so that's our summary image of everything. So I upload both of those to Twitter. Now, just what we can do, same process, grab the file, drop it down. This time, what we want to do is look at the animation. So you can see there's a fairly big jump there, which is good. And that corresponds to the time when our command appears. So let's, instead of focusing here, let's focus here. And we'll do this while we remember. Now, this is just playing it. We're looking, ignore Ryu's face, it's like the versus screen. We are looking at his hand to make sure that it's lifting up each time. Okay, there are some other things you can do to help, which I've programmed in. So that looks fine. It doesn't, so for Street Fighter 6, it looks as though the command history lines up with the animation. We can blend, so we can compare the two images and make sure that, you know, clearly there's a big jump in his animation there. And then the other thing we can do is play that particular frame full screen. Okay, which just means if it was a subtle thing, then it's a bit easier to see. You don't you don't have to zoom in, but I have it on by default because it helps a lot. Okay, so having done that, yes, we've put in our things, so that will again save the image. It also So it'll save a CSV as a summary. And then it will print these out. So now I go to these three. I upload. That's 10 minutes. So when my flow is going well, I can get all of this done in 10 minutes. We're not too far off despite all the extra talking. That was 92.24. So Street Fighter 6 is definitely a slow game when you don't have input delay reduction on. There's no bones about it. And conversely, it's a great game when you have input delay reduction on. I've tried this entire spreadsheet. I want to have for no tearing. My plan is to have a separate spreadsheet for games that tear. What did we say? 90.2. But I'm sure someone will misinterpret that as hard as they can. Cool. And that is pretty much it. That is how I go from nothing to results in 12 minutes this time, but 10 minutes on average.